Welcome to another episode of Hemp Barons. On today's show, Joy is joined by one of the world's foremost authorities on mechanical and solvent-based extraction methodology. His experience with cannabis extraction goes far beyond hemp, and they take a deep dive into everything from processing to SOPs to compliance issues to ethics. Let's join Joy's conversation with Darwin Millard from Millard Masonek Solutions.
Well, welcome, Darwin. Thank you so much for being with us on Hemp Barons today.
Hey, Joy. It's so great to be here.
Well, you're one of the busiest men, talk about, and humans, not just man and woman alike, in consulting, in the cannabis space, both hemp and adult and medical forms of cannabis, particularly where extract is concerned. You have made your mark for several years now, have been really a leader here globally in extract processing, extract SOPs, all manner of the operations and compliance issues and highest standards and ethics that go into extracting the cannabis plant. Again, whether we're talking about hemp-derived extracts or other forms of cannabis. It's been my great pleasure to know you for a number of years, to be able to work with you, and we're just so glad to have you on the show today. I want to get right into it, and we usually start by asking, what got you into hemp and any other form of cannabis? Let's just learn a little bit about Darwin and what led you to this amazing, versatile plant.
Well, thank you so much, Joy. I want to take this opportunity to say I appreciate so much for having me on and getting to chat with you. I appreciate you the praise that you gave me. That said, I still haven't quite made the 100 people in industry to know. I think that's what the hemp connoisseur that releases that. So maybe one of those days I'll get in there. But so I've been working in the cannabis space now for 13 years, just for a cool decade. And so I'm a mechanical engineer by training, and I specialize in the mechanical and solvent-based extraction methodologies for isolating terpenolic secondary metabolites from botanicals. And so for me, it was kind of like, as a mechanical engineer graduating from college, I could have either created and designed and built slurry pumps for the fracking industry to rape the planet for the last of the few fossil fuels, or I could dive headfirst into the fledgling cannabis industry in Colorado. And I guess you could say I wouldn't change it for the world.
Amazing, of course, that you're a Colorado boy. That's where your family is from. And were you born and raised in Colorado as well, Darwin?
Douglasville, Georgia was where I was born. Most of my family is actually all from the South. And just my parents live in Colorado now.
Amazing. And I know you were in Colorado when we first commenced our work together, really starting to try to understand and create standards for the emerging, as we called it, phytocannabinoid industry. We now have basically dropped the phyto, just in terms of our common vernacular. And so I know that standards and compliance, and really just, again, giving the highest, healthiest possible quality products that could be given to consumers, and particularly, of course, to patients and those with compromised immune situations. That's really what you have always been about. You have always been an industry leader and driving force. And when we get a little more into our talk here, we'll talk about the very big and responsible leadership role that you have with ASTM and their D37 committee on cannabis. But you started in, and I'd love to, if you could tell the listeners a little bit about how you got started in the legal space, and eventually came to form Millard Masonek Solutions, which does business as Phytologix, again, one of the most in-demand consultancies out there. In fact, as you well know, I took on a role and am currently the regulatory officer and industry liaison for Elixinol, which has its CBD products in 50 countries all over the world. And as a result of that, I don't do any consulting in hemp extracts anymore, because that would just be ridiculous and unfair to Elixinol, right? They pay me very well, and they own my extract brain. But many people call me for that consultancy, and of course I have to deny the work, but don't want to, leave them empty-handed. And I always send them first and foremost to Phytologix and warn them, keep in mind, this is the most in-demand consultant that I know of in North America, and probably beyond. We know well that you have lots of relationships in other parts of the world, in particular India and others. So I don't know how many of those folks you actually get to serve, as busy as you are, but it's just so important for me that that you're just the number one brain, I think, for extract consultancies. That's everything from processes to standards to compliance. So tell us, and if you'd like to inform us how you came to form Phytologix, or just start in with what Phytologix is doing, we'd love to hear about it.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. Back when we kind of formed or were working together, that was the fledgling time frame, or I guess wild west of CBD from hemp, and kind of just trying to flesh out and make this marketplace safer for consumers and manufacturers alike. I started Millard Masonek Solutions we're a 3-year-old company now. And that was just after another consulting company that I had created with a friend of mine, Miss Tamar Wise, who has gone off and has doing, I believe it's Wise Consulting that she does now. So we've both kind of branched off and done our own niche services. She focuses on formulation. I do process train engineering. So that's specifically what we do, is helping our clients understand how to make those products that they have in their mind. So we help them take it from conceptualization to commercialization, and actually help them through every step in between in regards to the design and implementation of a process that can be used to manufacture their end product. And lately, we've been working with clients and helping them adhere to GMP and get certified, especially within the hemp space, with their bulk hemp ingredients that they've been manufacturing, whether those are phytocannabinoids or other nutritional-based goods, to get them ready for FDA inspection and certification, as well as going from either food grade or pharmaceutical grade GMP compliance. So we've been working with clients not only to help them design and build and then commission their extraction facilities, but help them get through the GMP process as well. As you were saying, from the very beginning, I've always been an eye on quality. I guess 13 years ago now, jumping into this, right, there weren't really any standards being applied to the marketplace. And as an engineer, I could see some major gaps. And also as a consumer, wanting to have safe and reliable product to consume, and being an enthusiast for extracts, an extract artist, you might say, looking into those, I wanted to produce better, safer, and higher quality product, but also understand what my yields were and my cost of goods at a time when really that didn't matter to anybody, because this stuff sold like hotcakes. So I've really just been applying those principles to the marketplace ever since, and just helping clients on every scale of extraction and product manufacturing figure out what it is that they actually want to make and how to do that in the most efficient way possible.
And boy, aren't you amazing at it. While we're on this subject, let's talk a little bit about the current marketplace for CBD products here in America. You have such a global reach. I feel like I have to specify, let's just keep our talk down to the United States at present, although certainly other countries and jurisdictions share our same challenges. Give us a summary of how you see, particularly with an eye to all of the smaller brands or cottage industry, and also keeping in mind that you and I both know that, the hemp industry in particular, industries were built on the backs of cottage industry and small businesses. And yet when we look at CGMP compliance, current good manufacturing practices, CGMP, which in particular, if we keep it down to dietary supplements, food, and cosmetics, which for hemp-derived extracts right now are what are out there, and I'll also go on a further tangent here and expand the question by and underscore, as you know, we had to sort of birth the U.S. Hemp Authority. When I say we, had to birth this certification program into the world. And the original thinking for the U.S. Hemp Authority was to, out of respect for, and to provide some cover, in fact, for those small businesses in that cottage industry, that we thought at the time, and believe me, as with everything with hemp, you pivot as new information and data and science and regs come into your field of awareness. But we thought these small businesses and cottage industries, when they really get a load at what's 21 CFR 111, which is CGMP for food, 21 CFR 117, which is CGMP regs for dietary supplements and so on, when they look at those, like, they're going to freak out when they realize what regulations are required in the United States of America if you are making products for human or animal even ingestion or even topical application. And so we're going to make this sort of CGMP light is how we even quasi described it for this first version, to get these small businesses and cottage industries able to position themselves and be a player in the market. And then when version 2.0 comes out, we're going to have to increase this CGMP compliance. And of course, version 2.0, now the very baseline for version 2.0 is CGMP compliance with the additional hemp-specific standards on top of that. So with that sort of foundation, how you see the market right now with what's going to happen to all of these, not the smaller brands that are white labeling and potentially sourcing from a CGMP compliant facility, though we know that that is more the exception and not the rule, but the small businesses that are actually processing and manufacturing and are trying to stay in this game?
Well, you certainly don't make these questions easy, do you, Joy?
Only for the ones that I know who can handle the complicated issues.
For sure. Well, it's a great point that you've brought up in regards to making sure that people are aware that now that hemp is legal, that means it's now under the purview of the feds. It's no longer, while it is still very much a state-by-state play, there is the overlying, I guess, pressure that it's now also a federal marketplace that you have to be compliant with. And one of those being, of course, is complying with the FDA and their regulations for manufacturing food products. Unfortunately, as you are very well aware, the USDA, which currently has regulatory authority over cultivation of hemp plants, doesn't have anything to do or any say really when it comes to processors of this product, of this agricultural commodity. What do you do once you have flowers to sell or process? I guess it's more of, as a farmer, it's easy. You're selling your biomass. That's your that's your commodity that you're selling, or you're selling your seed, or you're selling your fiber. But there hasn't been any rules laid out from the FDA on how to process that in a safe and compliant manner for producing foods. There are rules that are out there that exist for producing foods, of course, in this country, but they haven't yet been applied to the cannabis industry, to hemp in general. It's new, and regulators are scared. The Reefer Madness was a very effective campaign, and we're still, trying to flesh out all of that. I would say the misinformation that still exists.
Or as I often say, the social engineering of it. We're trying to de-engineer it.
Absolutely. Coming out of prohibition with anything else, right? You have to adhere with rules, but we're in this position that there aren't any to adhere to. So we have to provide the industry has to create its own, has to provide guidelines and assurances to the regulators that they're doing something in an appropriate way, while the FDA kind of figures out what they're going to do. But that looming FDA presence is there and ever growing. So I like to call it, you were asking kind of what I think about the marketplace, and there's an inevitable consolidation that is coming for those that can't meet the GMP compliance requirements that are under FSMA, which is what everyone really needs to be focusing on, which is the Food Safety Modernization Act, which took effect in 2016 and is codified under 21 CFR 117, which effectively establishes which is a part of FSMA, but it establishes the preventative control rules, current good manufacturing practices, and other controls for manufacture of human foods. And currently, actually, within ASTM International's Technical Committee D37 on cannabis, we are currently working on creating a compliance guide for processors in the cannabis space, whether those are marijuana or hemp, for adhering to and being in compliance with FSMA. So if you're a manufacturer producing any type of cannabis product, whether that's from marijuana or hemp that is intended to be eaten by a human, then we have a guideline we're hoping will be that interim document that can help regulators alike establish the protocols for food manufacturers who want to use cannabis-derived ingredients or products as an ingredient.
Attention hemp farmers, introducing Advanced Hemp, the world's first hemp-specific fertilizing system designed to maximize yield and CBD production. Advanced Hemp's team of 25 PhD plant scientists have been researching the plant for over 20 years and understand it better than anyone. Don't fail to meet your hemp's unique needs like far too many farmers did last year. For heavy yield of the high CBD hemp, feed your crop Advanced Hemp. And you can order online at advancedhemp.com. That's advancedhemp.com. But don't wait, because production is limited, so pre-order now.
Outstanding. Really just fantastic work. And in fact, this is a great segue for us to talk about ASTM, which again is just doing such important work. American standards for testing and measurements. Folks may be familiar, if they've not aren't familiar with me saying ASTM, then try to visualize it on a building material package with an ASTM rating. And ASTM is responsible for standards on a number of industries, practically every industry. And we were so thrilled about, and I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Darwin, 4 or 5, it might even be 5 years back. Time is going so quickly, it could be possible to more close to 4, when ASTM created its D37 Committee on Cannabis. It was like, we have arrived, cannabis is coming, ASTM is taking it on. And you have very many roles and wear lots of hats within ASTM, because that's just the kind of advocate that you are. We're cut from the same cloth. And you're the industrial hemp liaison to the committee, as well as vice chair and co-chair of some of the most critical subcommittees. Could you tell us a little bit about those subcommittees and the work that they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So ASTM International is one of the oldest standards development organizations in the world. They're actually established in 1898 in the United States, when they were originally called the American Society for Testing and Materials. But that acronym has since been dropped, and they are just ASTM International now. And that actually happened in 1974, when they became an official international standards development organization and not just a US-based group. But they were formed to actually standardize railroad ties, so that they were to be the same gauge, or the rails, excuse me, because trains would go effectively from one rail manufacturer's rails to another and would fall off the tracks because they weren't the same. So this was, of course, during the Industrial Revolution, major expansion within the United States. So there had to be a quick way to fix that. So ASTM was established to do so. And so since then, there are now 148 technical committees within ASTM International that have established some 12,700 different standards that are codified within the United States as well as other several other countries, with something like 30 some odd thousand members. 8,000 of those members are from 140 different countries, with 7,700 roughly of those standards that I've mentioned being used or referenced in countries, roughly 75 countries from around the world. And so the standards, I guess, ASTM International in 2017 was essentially approached by the industry, the cannabis industry, with the need for standards. Help us create safer, higher quality products and help us eliminate misinformation that's been out there and lower regulatory burden. That's essentially our goal by creating these standards, is to establish a foundation from which a legitimate commodity marketplace can be created and established from the cannabis plant.
Thank you for that. And before we talk about your specific committees that you vice chair and co-chair, a general question, because it's fascinating how ASTM has taken this. How has ASTM decided to define or categorize the different types of cannabis? And listeners, so you know, when in this respect, when I talk about cannabis, I'm talking about the genus cannabis in all of its forms. So medical and adult use and sacramental types of a more potentially intoxicating type of cannabis, or the industrial purposes, the more low resin or extract fiber at grain types of cannabis. So how has ASTM defined or categorized the very many different types of cannabis, or uses, as it were, for cannabis?
Oh, well, that's a great question there, Joy. You're putting me on the spot there. So technically, within the ASTM International structure and within the D37 committee itself, we are a membership made up of stakeholders, made up of people who enjoy these products and are just general consumers of them, or people who may have interests and are activists and enthusiasts in this space, or government regulators. So it's a body of many different membership types and, I guess, roles. And so everyone has an individual vote or an equal vote. So it's not that these proposed terminologies have been accepted or adopted by everyone quite yet, but they are certainly proposed terminologies that we have been floating around that would shift how one refers to the cannabis plant, and instead of referring to it by an arbitrary set of constituents that vary from one authority to another, base it based on the end use or the purpose for which that plant is being cultivated, or for which the product is, I guess, which stream, which marketplace is going to be sold in. Is it a food? Is it a pharmaceutical product? Is it an adult use product? And creating something that's more fit for purpose, so to speak. So we within the D37 have recently just passed our terminology standard. It has not yet been published because it's still going through fleshing out of formatting and structure, at which point actually the terminology document is one of the most heated in regards to getting it through the balloting process. Each individual term will then go under reballoting, because we would like to say that they are maybe adequate enough to, adequate isn't a right word. So that's really tricky. Acceptable or adequate or some other type of synonym that makes it so that getting something out there is better than having no words at all, no standardized terminology. But that said, there are several terms that are going to be changed. And that's the great thing about ASTM standards, actually, is that they're not fixed or set in stone when, say, they're passed, which isn't exactly the same as some other standards development organizations that are out there. When an ASTM standard is published, if there's an error that's determined by either a membership or someone identifies it, there's an opportunity to immediately update it. So we're taking that into our own hands as membership. So once this initial draft is published, actually, I guess it's once the initial set of terms are published, myself and a few others will be taking up individual terms to submit revisions so that they can be more appropriate. And amongst those revisions would be some of the fit for purpose terminologies in regards to defining the cannabis plant by the purpose for which it's being cultivated, whether that's for the resins or some nutritional purpose or a true industrial purpose or some type of multi-use purpose.
So incredible. And I think one of the important things of the great response and thorough response that you just gave us is, of course, the democratic process of what's going on with ASTM. And I think underscoring the fact that, because these definitions and these terms have been labored upon by the dedicated folks and members of the committees and subcommittees of D37 for quite some time. But the reality is, until folks feel comfortable, at least as you say, comfortable enough to come to consensus to say, all right, let's release these. We're going to update them and we have the ability to update them, but let's get them out into the world. And folks thus far have not been, it sounds like you've gotten, or ASTM has gotten the farthest that it's gotten so far in this process where it's at right now in trying to get something out into the world. Just the amount of debate and intellect and time investment. And I just know it so well from all of my years of advocacy work and, of course, working on the U.S. Hemp Authority, which also has a glossary of terms and all of those things. It's so appreciated, that commitment and that time, completely uncompensated. So much of our work is totally pro bono and volunteer based on our dedication and commitment to and belief in the delivering on the promise of this incredible plant. Just so appreciated, Darwin. And could you give us some information specific to the two subcommittees that you vice chair and co-chair?
Sure, of course. Before I get there, I did want to say that we're about a 3-year-old organization now, built up of stakeholders in this industry, just like yourself and myself, and as I said, government agencies and others. In this time, while even we were all voluntary and not being paid anything to do this, we have approved and published 14 standards. And in these 3 years, first 3 years, several of those have been adopted by a few different countries, namely Canada, as well as the Jamaican Bureau of Standards adopted the first 4 standards we published. We also approved 2 new subcommittees within the last year, the D3707 on hemp, which I happen to be a co-chair. I co-chair that with Ted Hanley from the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance. And we have been working on that in that committee. It's specific to developing standards for the characterization and use of hemp and the applications for its derived products, such as, but not limited to, food, natural health products, animal feed, and non-consumable products like construction materials and fabrics and other stuff like that. And we recently just approved the D3708 on devices and appliances for personal at-home use, so such as vape pens, which were in the news so much, I guess, last year in regards to the deaths for that was more related to the formulations of the vape pens and things like that. But this subcommittee specifically addresses safety and quality of the hardware including at-home growing appliances as well. But within the D37 structure, we have how many committees now? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 technical committees, each one focusing on a specific area within industry. We've got cultivation that does indoor and outdoor horticulture and agricultural standards, as well as quality management and laboratory test methods. And then D3704, which is the other committee I am passionate about, of course, because I'm a extraction artist and process trained engineer. The D3704 is on processing and handling, and I vice chair that committee. But we also have security and transportation, as well as personnel training, assessment, and credentialing. So creating the type of credentials and assessment criteria that should be in place for keeping the personnel who actually work and do these processes in these large facilities, how to keep them safe and ensure that their quality of life is maintained. Of course, we've got standards for hemp coming out, devices and appliances, like I said, and the hardest one to get everybody to agree on, terminology.
Indeed. And even for the U.S. Hemp Authority, we will spend hours and talk to experts and cannabis intellectuals all over the United States and universities within the United States and other countries. And finally, after agonizing over one definition, finally we've come up with it, and then we'll publish it, and literally a week later be like, wow, that's flawed. There's a flaw. I mean, it is so challenging because you're trying to come up with terminology that is fair to the industry while also closing as many loopholes as you can possibly close for the unscrupulous actors. And it's such a delicate balance. Amazing work, Darwin. For folks who want to reach you, particularly if they're looking for your world-class consulting services through Millard Masonek Solutions, which does business as Phytologix, and by the way, that's Logix, Phytologix. How can folks reach you, Darwin?
Sure. Well, they can check out our website, which is millardmasoneksolutions.com. You can also find it at phytologix.solutions. I know that's a fun URL there. But my easiest way is you can email either myself directly, which is my name. So that's Darwin, like the scientist, Darwin, at Phytologix, which is spelled P as in Paul, HYTOLOGIX.solutions. There's no .com, no anything else after that. It's just a fancy new URL.
Beautiful. And for folks who want to find out more about ASTM, where could they go to get more information?
So I would highly recommend that they check out the D37 website on ASTM International's webpage. It's very easy to go to. You would just search for or go to ASTM.org. And in the main search bar at the top, type in D37. And you'll actually come up with every single search reference on the committee. So not only the committee page, but also the pages on the 3 workshops we've done in Europe so far, or well, 2 technically. We have a 3rd scheduled for this year that we're all crossing our fingers will still occur, October 22nd and 23rd in Prague, as well as the subcommittee meeting minutes, all of the various different current work items that are being taken out by all the different technical committees, as well as all of the published standards, are all available for reference and review simply by just going to ASTM.org and at the main search bar typing in the letter D as in Douglas and the numbers 3 and 7.
Fantastic. Again, so grateful for your time today. A very busy day for you, regardless of any stay-at-home order, and for me as well. Of course, as you know, brother, just so grateful to have you on. Can't wait to have you on again. And we're wishing Phytologix everything good in the world. And certainly, again, thank you so much, ASTM, and for your work on ASTM. Thank you, Darwin.
Much appreciated, Joy. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. It was great, and hopefully we can catch up soon.
Excellent. Thanks again.